Next, we shall be talking about the different types of diabetes mellitus. There are quite a number of types of diabetes mellitus, but today I'm going to be talking about the two commonest types that we have here in the country, even worldwide, and that's type 1 and type 2. I'll give you one example of a construction site. Just think about a construction site at your place there. Maybe a rich man is building a flat and he has hired a group of people, but before they start constructing the flat, they fence the site and put only one entrance to the gate, to the site, and then put a gate on that on that entrance. There is a team of people that work inside. There are lorries or trucks that ferry the construction material from wherever and bring them to the site. But because the entrance is so small and the lorries are that big, they cannot enter or cross through the entrance. So what they do, they just offload whatever they bring outside the fence, and there is another team of committed guys with wheelbarrows that ferry the raw materials from outside into the construction site. There is also an askari who usually opens in the morning and then locks in the evening when the day's duty is done. So that's the scenario I want you to think about. Now, imagine one day the guys who are meant to ferry the raw materials from outside, that's the sand, the bricks, the gravel, the timber, from outside the fence into the construction site, go on a sit-down strike. Maybe they've not earned in a while, and they are like, if you don't give us our money, we are not working again. So they go on a sit-down strike, and everything gets stagnant. The raw materials are there outside, but the people building inside cannot go on with the building because there is nothing for them to use. Some of them actually call the guys that deliver the raw materials and ask them, you guys, we have nothing to use. And so those guys just bring more, because they don't know that inside the things they are bringing are not able to reach inside. So what happens in the long run, the raw materials will accumulate outside. They will start disturbing everyone else. They are blocking the road, going in other people's properties. The community goes into ruckus. What exactly is going on? Why aren't these people taking the thing? So there will be a lot of chaos in the community, and yet even inside the construction site, there is no construction going on. That is one form. Or imagine one day the askari, that guy who locks the gate, who keeps the keys, wakes up one morning and is like, if you don't give me my money, I am not going to open that gate for you. So what happens? The guys that are meant to build are there. The guys that are meant to ferry the raw materials are there. The raw materials are actually outside because the trucks keep bringing, but there is no way how these things are going to enter because the gate is locked and there is only one entrance into the construction site. So raw materials are going to accumulate outside and cause chaos, and then no construction is going to take place inside because they don't have what to use, and that's also a problem. So and that's type number 2. Those are the main two types of diabetes mellitus. Once you understand that and relate it to what actually happens in your body, then you've understood them. For you to do the different activities I told you, you need glucose, the sugars. And how do you get them? When you eat the foods that have sugars, carbohydrates, the cassava, sweet potatoes, the yams, the maize, the posho. When you eat, you go ahead to break down those things you've eaten in your intestines, and then the end products, the sugars, the glucose, cross into the blood. Now when it reaches the blood, it has to enter into the different parts of the body, all the cells of the body for utilization or storage. Now, that's how you get the sugars. But remember, I also told you that the insulin, which is produced by your pancreas, is the one that opens up the gates where the glucose is meant to pass to access the cells of the body. Now, if your pancreas is destroyed by anything to the point that it can no longer produce enough insulin, it means the sugars will be there the same way the raw materials are there, but the sugars will not cross into the cells because the carrier, the same way the other men that carry wheelbarrows have gone on a sit-down strike and not there, they did not come to work. It's the same way how your insulin will not be available to facilitate the entrance of glucose inside the cells of the body. And at the end of the day, the glucose will continue accumulating outside, that is in the blood, and it will start destroying different parts of your body, the eyes, the kidneys, the brain, the heart, the blood vessels in different parts of your body, because it has accumulated beyond the limits. And inside the cells where this glucose had to be taken, there will not be a lot going on because the glucose is missing. That's type 1. Type 2 is when you have the insulin. Your pancreas is actually working well. It's able to produce insulin, but your body becomes resistant. For any reason, the body becomes resistant, that even in the presence of insulin, the cells will not take in glucose the same way the askari locks the gate, and the gates cannot, and the lorry, the guys with wheelbarrows cannot enter, cannot ferry the things. Is the same way that your body becomes resistant and the locks become funny, so that even in the presence of insulin, the gates to your body cannot open to let in glucose. Those are the commonest types of diabetes mellitus. Type 1, where you don't have enough insulin because your pancreas has been destroyed, and type 2, where you have enough insulin and because the pancreas is actually working well, but your body is resistant, it's defiant, it doesn't accept anything to enter. That's type 2. Type 1 is also called insulin dependent, because for that particular person, their only need is insulin. The moment we give them insulin, every other thing gets okay. It's insulin dependent. It's more common in the young people and children, though it can also take place in adults. Type 2, that is majorly insulin independent, is more common in the adults, people above 45 years, though it can also happen in the younger people, especially these days where they are more at risk because of the prevailing circumstances. You find a child of 7 years with the weight of a 30-year-old adult. So because of those risk factors, we are starting to see type 2 diabetes mellitus also taking place in the young people, though it largely stands that majority of the people with diabetes type 2 are actually old people or older people, and not the children like we see in type 1 diabetes mellitus. In some people with type 2 diabetes mellitus, later on they also develop similar features like people with type 1 diabetes mellitus, and their treatment almost has the same things, because in type 1 the treatment relies on insulin. We just give them insulin. At type 2, most of the times we just give them the tablets. But for some people with type 2, later on they eventually get a component of type 1. Their pancreas also stops producing the insulin, and they get those two issues. Just like the construction site. Because if these guys that ferry things inside come every day to work, but they find they get locked because their askari is on a sit-down strike, It means a time is going to come when they are tired, they are no longer working, they are no longer making money, so they start looking out for other jobs. Because how do you keep coming to a construction site where you're not actually working? It means you're not going to earn. So it's the same thing. The person that used to produce a lot of insulin, because the pancreas, whenever the glucose levels are high, the pancreas is burdened to produce a lot of insulin. But if it produces a lot of insulin and this insulin doesn't do anything, the glucose levels remain high, a time comes and it gets tired and it doesn't produce enough insulin. So a person who only had a challenge of having resistance to insulin now gets a second problem of not having enough insulin. So they need the treatment that will both facilitate the entrance of glucose and the insulin that is supposed to help the glucose enter. I hope you understand that. But basically, that's what happens, and those are the two commonest types of diabetes mellitus. Now, majority of the people who are diabetic actually have type 2 diabetes. 95% of the people that live with diabetes mellitus have type 2 diabetes, and then the other 5% is shared among the rest of the types. We have diabetes that comes with pregnancy, also called gestational diabetes mellitus. It comes, and most of the times it actually goes away when the pregnancy when you have delivered or when the pregnancy has ended. That's gestation diabetes mellitus. The people or the ladies that usually get that type of diabetes mellitus are at a slightly increased risk of getting type 2 diabetes mellitus. They're actually supposed to watch out because most of them end up getting type 2 diabetes mellitus and other types. So basically, those are the different types. Now, what do you feel in your body when you have diabetes mellitus? Now, regardless of the type that you may have, you actually feel the same things, because in all the types, what happens is an abnormal increase in the amount of glucose in your blood, in the amount of sugars in your blood. And these sugars cause the same effects, cause the same damages, cause the same complications. The only difference might be in the onset. When do you get these symptoms? How severe are the symptoms when you've just got the illness? Now, people with type 1 diabetes mellitus who don't produce enough insulin usually present with these symptoms, and they are very severe. They might even come to hospital when they are in coma, and the kidneys have been damaged, they are unconscious, all those things. Unlike people with type 2 who might take years, up to 4 years with the illness, but when they've not been diagnosed, because the symptoms might seem minor and the damage may also be slowly, or the onset might be slow. But generally speaking, for people that live with diabetes mellitus, you experience frequent thirst. You even wake up in the middle of the night and you want to drink water. If you don't find something to drink, your lips will dry up, you will feel so terrible, and you can only get relief when you take water. So if you're the kind of person that takes water regularly, maybe after 30 minutes you feel there is that thirst, and it's not because the season is dry, it's not because you're doing a lot of work that makes you sweat, but you just find yourself taking a lot of water. There are some people who urinate a lot. Now, some people find an excuse. When they keep drinking a lot, they say, the reason I urinate a lot is because I actually drink a lot. But it's slightly different for people with diabetes. So if you find yourself urinating every after an hour, every after 2 hours, you're urinating, you even wake up in the middle of the night for close to 3, 4, 5 times, that's not normal. If you're someone that feels hungry all the time, you eat a meal and in an hour or 2 hours you feel so hungry, you want to eat, it's not because you are greedy, you're not a glutton, it might be because you have diabetes mellitus that makes you feed or want to eat frequently. Some people experience numbness in their feet and hands. Others feel pricking sensations or pin pricks within their feet. Those are symptoms of diabetes mellitus. Some people experience what we call general body weakness all of a sudden, not because you have worked a lot, not because you have been doing a lot, but you just feel weak. You can't do much. You feel exhausted and fatigued because the glucose you're eating, the food you're taking in, does not access the parts of the body that are meant to do the different activities. Most of it remains in blood, so you feel weak. Some people have a tendency of feeling abdominal pain and discomfort, especially in the right upper part of the abdomen. Others will get a blurring of their vision. All of a sudden, it's daytime, there is really a lot of light around, but you can't see clearly. There is a form of cloud on your side. It might be because you have diabetes mellitus. So, those are the common things that people feel when they have diabetes mellitus. What are some of the damages that can happen to you just in case you have diabetes mellitus but you don't do anything about it? Maybe you don't ever find out that you have it, or you find out but think about going to hospital and you become lazy and you don't actually do anything about it. What are some of those dangers? Diabetes mellitus. This is not to scare you, but to let you know the dangers and the things you risk when you don't get the appropriate medical intervention when you have diabetes mellitus. The sugars, high blood sugar levels, can affect your kidneys. Now, because this blood that contains the high sugar levels keeps moving within the blood vessels. Now, it's the blood vessels where the sugars are that get damaged, both the small and the big blood vessels. Wherever the blood goes, those blood vessels can be affected. So some blood goes to the kidneys, and as it goes to the kidneys, it passes through the blood vessels of the kidneys, which might be damaged. And when they get damaged, even the kidneys themselves get damaged. Your kidneys are very, very important. They play an important role in sieving your blood. The things we eat, the drugs we take, most of them end up in our blood. But when they accumulate there, they can become toxic and disastrous. But the kidneys sieve out those excess components, sieve out the excess water, and ensure that everything that is in your blood is in the correct amount. Remember, too much of anything is always bad. So your kidneys ensure the components, the chemicals in your blood are actually enough. So when your kidneys get damaged, those things are going to accumulate and you are going to cause even effects on other parts of your body. The water is going to accumulate and it's going to pool in the different parts of your body. And those are the people you find with swollen legs, swollen abdomen, the entire body is swollen, and all those things. They also, the sugar levels can also affect blood vessels in your heart. Remember, your heart is very important. It sends blood to the different parts of the body. So when it's diseased, it means the blood will not reach different parts of the body effectively, and you don't want that to happen. Blood vessels in your brain can be affected and you end up with stroke. Stroke is a state where your brain has been damaged, and remember, your brain controls the different parts of your body. When a certain part of your brain responsible for moving your hand is damaged, it means you will not be able to move this hand. You may not be able to feel even when you're pricked or pinched. You will not be able to execute that particular function. Those are the people you find paralyzed on one side. You find someone that went to bed perfectly well, but they are not able to wake up or stand because a part of their body is weak because they've got a stroke. Stroke can affect your sight can be affected. You can have any of the parts of your body affected just because of a stroke just because of a damage in your brain as a result of uncontrolled high sugar levels in your blood. You can become blind. You find someone who was okay, they used to see right from childhood, and the time comes, they can no longer see. Why? Because they've been affected by high glucose levels in their blood. High glucose levels can affect you as a man, and you become impotent. You can get erectile dysfunction. It can really affect your manhood. You don't want that to happen. You can become deaf. High blood sugar levels can affect your hearing, and you become deaf. All those things can happen. High blood sugar levels can affect your nerves. Now, nerves are like electrical wires that conduct electricity from one point to another. When you touch something, the nerves carry the information that you have sensed to the spinal cord, to the brain, for it to be interpreted, so you can know that this is what I have touched. For example, when you touch something hot, that information will be carried by those nerves, those electrical cables, to the spinal cord, to the brain, and the information will be interpreted that you have touched a hot substance, and the information and instruction will come back to that hand to withdraw it from the insult. Now, when you are not able to feel, because your nerves have been affected by these high sugar levels, you will not be able to respond appropriately. Imagine having a stone in your shoe and you walk around with it the whole day, not knowing you have a stone in your shoe. What does that mean? At the end of the day, you're going to see a wound on your toe or foot, and you're going to wonder where it came from, because your nerves are affected. And remember, this high sugar level also affects your healing mechanism. It affects your immune system. So whenever you get a small wound, the healing process is going to be so slow, to the point that the wound may keep on advancing and advancing. That those are the people you find whose feet have been cut off, whose legs have been cut off, just because the high sugar levels affected their healing mechanisms. They are not able to heal so fast like any other person. But also the nerves have been affected, that when they get an insult, for example, when they are pricked, when they step on a sharp object, when they step on a hot object, they are not able to know. They are not able to recognize that on time. So to withdraw or to take away that particular part of the body being afflicted. So that's how disastrous it can be. And when your immune system is down, you can even get other infections. There are some infections which are really self-limited, where if you got it and your immune system is perfectly well, you may not even realize you got such an infection, because the body fights it off before it becomes disastrous. But because now the ability of the body to defend you has gone down, you will not be able to defend yourself, and those things will treat you so bad. You remember, even in this season of the pandemic, there are people who have been getting COVID-19, but they have not been treating them really badly. Some of them would not even know that they got it. Why? Because their immune systems were serving them well. But for others, it really became disastrous. They were hospitalized, they spent a lot of money in ICU, and some lost their lives. Of course, there are different things that can lower or weaken your immune system, but diabetes mellitus is one of them, and it's something that you should watch out for. So those are some of the complications, among many others, that you can get just in case you have high sugar levels, but you don't get to know, or you don't do anything about it, both intentionally and non-intentionally. Those are the things that you risk when you have high sugar levels. And that's why it's very important for you to be vigilant, especially the people who are at risk. The people who are at risk. You know, you come from a family where people have diabetes mellitus. You know, you come from a family where people have autoimmune diseases, those diseases that cause the body to destroy itself. Those things where you say the twins have burnt me, abalongo bandiches, are people who have patches of discoloration on their bodies. and many others. Of course, if you're someone that smokes, drinks alcohol, you're supposed to watch out, because you risk even other things. So basically, those are the complications. Now, what should one do? For those that have it, there is something that you are supposed to do to ensure that the high sugar levels don't cause these complications. For those that don't have it, there are things that you are supposed to do to ensure that you don't get it. I think I'll start with those that don't have it. If you don't have it, it will be better that you control your weight. You are supposed to know your weight. There is what we call a body mass index, BMI, which compares your weight to your height. It gives us a comparison how heavy you are in accordance to your height. Now, when you go to a health facility, let them measure your height, let them measure your weight, and let them calculate for you your BMI or body mass index and tell you where you fall. There are people who are underweight, there are people who have a normal weight, there are people who are overweight, there are people who are obese, there are people who are morbidly obese. Those are different classifications. When you are in the normal range of BMI, that's normal weight, you are okay. But when you are overweight, obese, or morbidly obese, depending on your BMI, you stand a chance of getting diabetes mellitus. So it will be better and in the best interest of your health for you to control that weight. How do we control weight? Two things: the things we eat and the kind of activities that we do. You need to be physically active. You need to engage in something that makes you sweat. Even if it's for only 15 minutes in the morning and 15 minutes in the evening, or just about 30 minutes altogether, it will be very, very important. But there are people who eat all kind of funny things and think they will exercise and cut those things or burn those things off. Oh, that's so horrible. You need to also regulate the kind of things you eat. There is always what we call a balanced diet. You may not have all the things you would need for a balanced diet, but at least ensure that you have more than one thing. You don't just go for a meal of cassava alone. Just cassava, just sweet potatoes, just posho alone. It's not good for your health. At least have something extra that you put there. For you who can access greens and fruits, very wonderful. You need them. You need the fruits, you need the vegetables, at least one of each in a day. You need to reduce on the amount of processed foods, on the tinned foods, on those fast foods that you take. Things that are so changed in nature. You find this was wheat, but has been processed to become something totally different. Those fast foods, those processed foods also increase your chances of getting diabetes mellitus. Alcohol consumption, I told you alcohol can affect your pancreas. You get what we call pancreatitis, which is a damage, which is a damage to your pancreas, which might be severe, so severe enough to even cause diabetes mellitus. So try to eat well, try to exercise regularly. You reduce your chances of getting diabetes mellitus. But in case you get it, take it upon yourself. Let it now be your personal responsibility to ensure that this does not go very far. It does not cause the severe damages that diabetes mellitus can cause to your body, like I have just told you. So when you have it, you are supposed to eat well, like I have said some of those things. There is also a video we have made on how you are supposed to eat if you have diabetes mellitus. Which foods? How should you eat? How frequent should you eat those foods? How should you eat in relation to the medication that you are taking? When are you supposed to know that at this time I think I should eat something, however small it is? We have made a video on that. Please look it up. Just go on YouTube. Just go on YouTube, on our YouTube channel, and check out that video. It's in the playlist of Diabetes Mellitus Awareness Month. So, but you're supposed to eat well. You're supposed to exercise regularly, especially the people with type 2 diabetes mellitus. You're supposed to exercise regularly. You're supposed to cut that weight. If you're someone that's overweight, please fight that. Make sure you reduce that weight in relation to your height, so that your weight and height fall within the normal BMI range, like I told you. It will also be important for you to get your sugars monitored regularly. If you can buy a personal glucose measuring device, we call it a glucometer, and you keep it in your house, that you keep monitoring your sugar levels at least once every day. But for you who are going to be injecting yourselves, it will be important that you check every time before you inject yourself. Even when you cannot afford that, at least once every day, so we can know the ranges of your blood sugar levels. It will be important for you to keep attending a certain diabetic clinic in a certain health facility. Most of those government facilities, most of those big private facilities offer diabetic clinics where they organize on a certain day and only attend to people with diabetes mellitus. Of course, they keep teaching you about those things concerning diabetes mellitus, but also keep monitoring your blood glucose and doing all the necessary tests to ensure that you are normal and you don't get the complications. The complications or the damages that high glucose levels cause usually come slowly by slowly. They don't just come suddenly. And the earlier we identify them, the better, because we shall be able to prevent the severe forms of those damages. But if you come to the hospital and something has really happened, you're now blind, it might be difficult for us to revive or to restore your sight. So when you come to the hospital and you tell us you get occasional blurring of vision, all those things, we shall now test and investigate your eyes and your sight and ask ourselves what exactly has caused this. And sometimes it might be because the glucose levels have not been managed so well. So it's very important for you to keep attending a diabetic clinic in any hospital, in any health facility. Before you stop taking your medication, please ensure that it is in consultation with your primary health care provider, with your health workers. The person that gave you the medicine for diabetes should be the same person to tell you now stop or now switch to this other one. But if you go to the streets and you find there someone advertising a certain medication, a certain herb, a certain remedy, and they tell you the moment you take this one for 1 week, your diabetes is going to get cured. You will never have sugars again. Please, before you take that up, before you buy into that idea, make sure it's in consultation with your healthcare provider, because we've seen a number of people that eventually come back to us when they've been off medication and they have severe complications, and you're like, what on earth were you thinking? Why would you do such a thing? Some people think for us health workers, the people that practice modern medicine, we are against nature, we are against the supernatural, we are against culture, we are against tradition, which is not actually the case. It's because we have taken a step to learn certain things in detail, and so we can predict what will happen when you have something and when you don't take a certain step. So that's why before you stop or hold taking your medication, it's better to do it in conjunction with your primary healthcare provider. When you are given the medicines to take, I want to beg you, please take them as prescribed. Take them on time. Don't give up on taking them. I told you God has blessed us that most of the important functions in our bodies or processes in our bodies take place without our conscience. For example, your heart beats when you are even asleep. You keep breathing even when you are deep asleep. You keep digesting your food inside there even when you are running, even when you are doing other things. So those things actually keep happening without us without us noticing, and without us doing something directly to influence those processes. But when a time comes and a certain process has broken down, it cannot continue automatically like it used to be, which we call an illness, which we call a disease, a dis-ease. It means you have to do something about it. Now yourself, you have to take an extra step to ensure that actually happens. Initially, your body could regulate the amount of insulin that stays in your blood. But now a time has come where it cannot happen. And if you don't do something to ensure the amount of insulin, the amount of glucose that will stay in your blood is controlled, you will get into issues. So when you get such an illness like diabetes mellitus, like high blood pressure, you have to take it upon yourself. You have to accept the responsibility. You have to know that now it's going to be my war. This is now yours to do. The day you don't take, things will not work out the way they are supposed to be. And no one would wish to see that happening. So if you have diabetes mellitus, make sure you take your medication properly, like you've been guided. Make sure you attend that diabetic clinic. Make sure you do your glucose monitoring regularly. Make sure you feed well. Make sure you exercise well. Report any complaints to a health worker. Before you start taking any other medication, whether it is natural remedy, please make sure you consult from your primary health care provider. And with that, we shall have your sugars under control. There are tests we do every after 3 months to ensure that the degree at which your glucose levels have affected you is kept in check. Or because we do a certain test that helps us know how high your glucose levels have been in a while. So it's important for you to be in direct connection with a health worker, if I'm to summarize that. So there are really a lot of things that we could share. There are a lot of things. I know some of you might be having questions. Please forward all those questions. We shall be able to attend to them. You can ask through our social media platforms. That's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, WhatsApp, YouTube, and we shall be able to respond to those questions. But we have also made other clips in Luganda, in English, to explain in detail some of the things that we have compiled at once in this video. There is really a lot to learn about diabetes mellitus, but all in all, you need to take a personal responsibility in case you have diabetes to ensure you don't get the complications. If you don't have it, it's still your responsibility to ensure you don't get it, or in case you get it, it's detected early and you start on the treatment plan, management plan quite early. So those are the things I really wanted to share with you today, and I am happy we've been able to share with you. Kindly feel free to subscribe to our YouTube channel, to follow us on Facebook, like our Facebook page, follow us on Twitter, on Instagram, or join any of our WhatsApp groups. We use Health Coach Uganda on all our social media platforms. Wherever you go, just put in Health Touch Uganda, like and follow. So whenever we upload something new, you don't actually miss out. You don't have to miss out on any of those things. I'm Mwanguzi Shadrach, and I keep telling you that remember, you have one life to live. Oh yes, one life to live. Health Touch Uganda, follow the light.